Hello, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Pie Before Dinner. Finally, we've just made two big snafus. We were actually talking all this time and did not press the go live space, and so we were talking behind the scenes. I was going to make up all sorts of excuses. One being we're just helping with the recounting and the counting the votes to try to get this election past the post, and that was taking up the time. Hello, everyone. How are you? This is Dr. Lou, host of Pie Before Dinner, talking math with Dr. Lou, your favorite neighborhood mathematics guru. I am live and direct in the studio with Dr. Shelley Jones and Mrs. Fatima Hines. Hello, ladies. How are you?
Hi, Lou, Dr. Lou.
Fatima, I see that sign now. Fatima's waving, but the last time in our first take, I said, "How are you?" to Fatima, and she said, and we realized that this is it's is 2020. Fatima, just go ahead and maybe turn up your audio a bit if you can, turn up your mic if possible. But we were just laughing in 2020. This is a time when just saying "How are you?" to someone becomes a very loaded question, right? People look at you funny, but it's that kind of time, right? We've had a tough election space that we're still in and around the space. Still trying to await the outcome of this election. It's been stressful. I mean, I don't know about you guys. I couldn't even look at the broadcast last night. I really wasn't feeling it. What
Yeah.
about you? How did you guys process the space?
Well, I watched it for a little while, then I dozed off, woke back up, watched it again, but I wasn't feeling it. I didn't want to hear all the noise. It was just too much.
Mm-hmm.
It was
Yeah,
too much. Too much
yeah,
anxiety.
yeah.
I'm the kind of person that not knowing is worse. So, like for me, it made it less stressful to at least be looking
Mm-hmm.
instead of not looking and wondering. So it was kind of like a train wreck. I couldn't look away. I woke up this morning and I was like, I mean, I might as well just check in. Um, but I think around 3 o'clock, I was like, that's it. I'm done. I'll check back in a couple hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock at night? 3 o'clock in the
No,
morning?
no, no. Last night, it was probably around 1 o'clock, 1 a.m. And it was like,
See, that's some
okay,
serious time. I mean, we're that's still holding a lot of stress deep
Yeah.
into the morning hours. Yeah, I had to, and I think it's just with black folk and with black community, it's a different kind of stress, right? It's an added stress because I started resigning myself to certain messages last night.
Mm-hmm.
One I heard on Twitter from a colleague of mine, and it was so powerful. And it just said something like this: "Look, we've been here before.
Mm-hmm.
Either way, we win." And it was, and I got it. I got it on the first take, right? It was
Mm-hmm.
that, look, we've been a part of bad administrations, and we've been in this journey when things haven't gone our way as community, as black people, and
Mm-hmm.
yet we still survive and we
Yes.
still rise, right? Uh,
Yes.
and so, I got it's easy to get so fixated, so caught up, so paralyzed, even, and that's a trauma response, right? Not listen, guys, when you didn't turn your TV on
Mm-hmm.
last night, when you didn't want to see anything, any news, and
Mm-hmm.
you just didn't want to, you just you're gonna sit this one out. That's a trauma response. You didn't have the energy, you didn't have the bandwidth, and you recognize it, and you chose some self care, and I'm okay with that. But I had to be reminded that this changes in administration don't change our flow as black people.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna resist. We're gonna fight. We're gonna protest. We're gonna inspire. We're gonna persevere. We're gonna, this is what we do as a people. Like,
Yeah.
are you with me? This is what we
Yeah,
do as
but
a people.
having this guy in office is just exhausting. It's exhausting.
It is. Listen,
I feel like
I was
we're
just
in a
about to say a curse word. It
situation.
is exhausting. Yes.
I feel like we're in a situation where it's the devil you know versus the devil you don't. And
Mm.
so I think that with this administration, we're in a devil you don't know situation. And so, like before, yeah, every election it's like whatever, more of the same, hashtag more of the same. But this time around,
Yeah.
it's been a upheaval that I don't think we've seen before. I feel like 2020 is word of the year is unprecedented. So like I don't
Mm,
think it's as simple as we're gonna do what we're gonna do, because we're faced with a completely different selection of unknowns than we have been
yeah.
previously.
Mm,
Yeah, we are. We are faced with unknowns, troubling unknowns, right? And you add to the mix, you add to the mix the hurricane season that we've had. You add to the mix the fires that we've had. You add to the
mm,
mix the pandemic. Look, we didn't even talk. We didn't even talk Corona, right? We
mm,
even got the Corona pandemic. That's not even a joke, but it's so crazy. It's laughable at this point. I
mm,
mean, the Corona pandemic and the racial justice pandemics that's continue to racial injustice pandemics that continue to roll across the country, if not the world. And so we were just in this place of upheaval, this place of instability, as I think instability. Um, one thing that's come out of this unstable space for me has been the idea of seeking priority, right?
mm,
Understanding what is it, what is my priority, what are the things that I value,
mhm.
uh, and just really focusing on self care and really
Yeah,
really taking out the
definitely.
time to feel and to be and to focus on the things that are important. And I
Mm,
think that's been a real revelation for me.
mhm.
What have you guys seen for yourselves and for your families?
That's a hard one, because you name like five different things that just that one
Mhm.
thing would be um
Yeah.
a lot. It would be heavy. And so when you name five things that are heavy, now we're having a weird extreme conversation. This all just feels very extreme. For my part, as we talked about the last time you had me on the show, prioritizing is really important, because in this moment, like, what you value is the thing you have to put your focus into, because
Yeah.
if you don't, you can get bogged down in some stuff
Mm,
that you can't control, or stuff that doesn't directly impact you or affect you. So like just that prioritizing. Our kids had an unexpected, so a tropical storm came on land, because it's 2020 and this is the life we're living. So in Atlanta,
yeah.
a tropical
Yeah.
storm came on land last week, and so we found ourselves with a day off of school, a surprise day off of school.
Mm,
And I made it a point to make that day be really fun.
good.
Like, it was a Thursday, so we watched a movie and we made popcorn, and then we played a video game, all four of us together.
Mm,
Um, we did one other thing. I think we went outside and did something for a minute too, but it was just like, we've gotten gifted this day of freedom. So
right.
let's do it. And it was really fun.
Yeah.
Mm.
My
What
girls
about
are my girls are grown up. So once in a while we'll go out to eat together. We went out to eat the other night, and then they slept over and we went to vote together. And that was a lot of fun. Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I try to take my walks. I try to make sure that I get out of the house, and just because with the pandemic, we're in the house more, and I'm online all the time, virtual this, virtual that. So I try to make sure I shut down and get outside. And and I mean that's about it. You like you said, you have to have your priorities.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. We are on virtual, 24/7. It's hard to shut down. Shelly and I have been in a couple meetings today, just alone today, and it feels like it's just nonstop moving from one space to the other. And so I wanted to open the show up to kind of talk about that and to give that breath and space, because it's so important to acknowledge, to anchor ourselves, and to acknowledge when we get into these spaces the toll that some of this work takes on our bodies, on our minds, and on our spirits. And I love being around Black people and Black community, because You know, it's the title of this show, tonight's episode, "And Still We Rise," right? Is so appropriate. And still we rise, teaching hope in tough times. And these are, I think, these qualify for tough times. You know, I think any one of those things qualify for tough times.
Absolutely.
And now, so we get the opportunity to talk about what we love, to teachers, and to speak life to the space. You are listening to Pie Before Dinner. This is your host, Dr. Lou. I'm in the studio live with Dr. Shelley Jones as well as Mrs. Fatima Hines. They are Pie Before Dinner contributors on a regular basis, editors, directors behind the scenes. They are two very powerful educators in and of their own right. I appreciate having you guys on the show. Uh, Thueba Duncan says, yes, self care is so important during the time, bettering ourselves so that we can be useful to others when needed. Yeah. Yeah. My focus on self affirmation, nurturing yourself, and setting boundaries. And I like that last. I love that last one,
Me
Thueba.
too.
Um,
That's a big one.
Setting
yeah,
boundaries.
I've never learned to set boundaries as much as I have during these times. I mean, and it feels pretty good. Like it feels
Mhm.
good. You know it. You know what? I've one revelation. I can't speak for the audience that I've come to appreciate is just. It sounds weird given my upbringing to say, but just being okay with with not being good.
Mm.
You know, just like, hey, I'm not at my best today. Just it's okay. you know,
Mhm.
it's okay. You know, just accept it. It's what our last week's speaker talked about, graceful acceptance,
Mm.
right? We're talking about graceful aging gracefully, but this I've idea of grateful acceptance, just
Mm.
accepting oneself for missed up in the midst of missed opportunities,
Yes.
right? Accepting oneself and having grace. And I think of you, Thweba, as you were saying that. I know you're teaching there in Columbus, Ohio, and Fatima, you're teaching and in Atlanta, Georgia. What's your school called again, Thweba? I mean, Fatima, what's your school called again?
I teach at the Friends School of Atlanta.
That's right. That's right. That's right. The Friends School of Atlanta, and so I know that there's a toll on you, a toll on you guys as well. But speaking of that, let's open up and let's talk about hope, right? Let's talk about hope,
Mm.
and let's talk about this idea of of finding hope through teaching. I'm going to throw up a really dumb question to the audience and to you. What do you think about that? Is it possible for our teaching to have hope? Is that what you see through it? I got the babies. Uh, Fatima, is that what you're seeing in your school? Do you see teachers when you think about teaching? Do you see that hope is a driver of the space that they're
Mm.
they're looking at these tough times and they're looking at, look, how do I teach with hope? Do you find teachers good at it, skilled at it? Do you find it prevalent or not?
I don't think that hope is the thing that's prevalent so much as like perseverance.
Hmm.
I feel like hope is more of a abstract concept for um, setting goals when you are in a regular situation. I
Mm.
feel like for us,
So I don't
it's
even
just
need we don't even need the show.
no. I don't think I think that having hope as an educator is different than bringing hope to your teaching.
Yeah.
Like as an educator, you have to bring hope because otherwise, what's the point? Like you just said, like why even have this show? But I don't think that as a school community to engage with our learners, that hope is it. I think it's more perseverance, like acknowledging and then um, setting about the doing. I don't
Mm.
think it's about an abstract concept because abstract isn't really available right now. Like we have a lot of really concrete, real
Yeah.
things that require our attention.
Mhm.
Um, I'm not anti hope, obviously, but I don't think that at this moment, at this
You
on this
sound a little jaded about hope. You're not anti hope, but you certainly
I don't
you
think that
sound
it's
a little
informing my teaching at this moment
Mhm.
uh-huh,
because
uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh.
I think that those were like perseverance and putting one foot in front of the other and having grit is what's informing me at this exact moment.
I got you. I got you. Shelly, Dr. Shelly, when I say hope, what springs to mind when you're listening to Fatima and myself talk about that?
Yeah, well, I'm in a little different of a situation because I am teaching future teachers, so pre-service teachers. So of course, because they haven't been out there yet, that's one of the things, you know, we really want to give to them is hope. And we were kind of talking about this today, how we don't want to lose sight of hope. We don't want to lose sight of, I mean, with all the stuff that we do need to do as teachers, and we're working with kids every day, we don't want to lose sight of hope, because we want kids to feel like they're doing this for a reason, not just to pass a test, not even just to go to college, but you know, why do you want to do this? What is this going to help you do? What is it going to empower you to do? Like, what is this schooling thing all about? And I think that, you know, when you're in the midst of it, sometimes you don't have time to have those thoughts because you're doing your day to day. But I do think that we have to come back to that sometime. We have to come back to that space, whether it be just a time when we can think about it ourselves, or a time when we can relate with other educators, like now. Sometimes we have to come back to, okay, why are we doing this? What's our why? You know, and hope's got to be a part of that, because we're losing a lot, especially now because of the pandemic.
Yeah. That's a good point. You know, I just looked up real quick as you were talking, Doc. I was looking at the definition of hope. So when I say hope, what definition springs to mind for you, Fatima, Shelly?
Fatima, I'll give you a chance.
I'm gonna ask the audience as well. You know, what is hope?
Yes, audience, what do you guys think? To me, hope, like I said, it's really abstract. It's kind of a feel-good concept. It's not something that you can set a goal for. Like, you can't set a goal of, well, I'm bringing more hope. I'm increasing our hope 10%, which is maybe the math teacher in me being like, I mean, where are my deliverables? So I think it's kind of a warm topic, like it's a word that brings warmth.
Warm fuzzy.
Yeah, but I'm not sure what I would say the substance of hope is.
Faith, man.
Aside from
I had to go, Shelly, I had to go biblical on it just now. Yeah, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Sorry, Fatima, you walked into that one.
I know.
We had to go back. We had to go back.
I'm fine with it. I think that it can be one of those things that informs other stuff, you know, that having that sort of buoyancy. I think that hope brings a buoyancy.
Yeah.
And I think that that's important, that buoyancy and positive, like, sort of can do feeling.
Yeah. I got you. Shelly, what do you think?
Well, I think it's a good question of, like, how do and why do kids persevere? Like, how do we help them to persevere? Because they have to want to do something to persevere. And so that to me, that's where the hope comes in. And I do think it does have that fuzzy feeling. But I think at the same time, sometimes we need that quiet space to just kind of think about, you know, we have the deliverables, we have all the stuff we have to do, but sometimes the kids are bogged down because of all that. Heck, sometimes the teachers are bogged down. And I think that with this time of virtual reality and everything, I want time to step out of that, everything's about math. It's about math, but what else? Because the math is going to come. I mean, we're mathematical creatures. And so I don't know. I've been having trouble with, because of all the work that I'm doing, I've been having trouble with just only thinking about the math and wanting to tap more into the people, the students, their hopes, their dreams. I know now I'm really getting fuzzy, but
Yeah, we
that's
don't do
that's
fuzzy.
kind
We
of where
don't do
we
fuzzy
are.
on this show.
I know.
Fatima has set the standard. We're not doing fuzzy on this show. No, sir. Lou, I know you want to talk about
I'm
hope
really
today,
getting
but I'm
fuzzy.
going to
Hopes
let you
and
know,
dreams.
Lou. Fatima said, I'm going to let you know, Doc, I don't like the title. Okay, I got you, Fatima.
But
How
it
you
says
gonna come
and
with
still re-rise, so that's
yeah,
and
no,
still
but she
rise.
right, but she came on the show, Shelly said, I don't like the title. I don't like the title. Basically, that's you know how people do. You know how
I've had
black
a
folk do
trying
sometimes.
day. Listen, I've had a trying day.
Yeah, I get it.
She said, I got to deal with the children.
Yeah.
No,
You
it's
know,
actually the children were not the issue today. It's the adults that are doing too
Ooh,
much and
hey,
not
listen,
enough.
yo, it's
Kids
all
can't vote. If kids could vote, we wouldn't be in this situation because they are
true,
still, most children
true,
are still in touch with their inner goodness.
mm-hmm,
Most of them.
true
Adults
say.
are not as in touch with their inner goodness. They don't have
True
as
say,
strong
true
of a
say.
sense of right and wrong as children do. So
mm-hmm,
if I mean maybe that's the answer is to lower the voting age. If you can write your name, you get to vote.
mm-hmm.
So well, in good news, in other good news, there's so many subtopics happening even across the nation. There's been the legalization of marijuana in certain places. In fact, I noticed that the legalization of marijuana in a lot of the red states, right? So
Ooh,
where people have been criminalized in these red
mm-hmm.
states, it's interesting. I also noted that people, some in I think it was California, won the right to vote if you had been incarcerated.
Florida.
Florida,
Yeah,
Florida, Florida.
Florida.
So that's some good, some sprinklings of some news.
Absolutely,
So
absolutely.
there's I've been challenged to find it. I've scoured the internet. I visited the Martin Luther King. Fatima, maybe you can get it for me. If you go to the Martin Luther King Center, is that still open?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, they
I mean,
sell these.
it still exists. I don't know if you can go in there right now, but yes, it is still
Oh,
in place. Yes.
they sell these cassette tapes. Sorry.
How delightfully retro.
I started this question off wrong, but they sell these cassette tapes. Well, they did sell these cassette tapes of Martin Luther King's greatest speeches,
Hmm.
and there's a speech that he made called "The Meaning of Hope." And trust me, you'll Google it, you'll never find it. You won't find this thing on Google. You won't find this thing online. It's called "The Meaning of Hope." And in it he really gives it was a Sunday sermon, I believe, and he gives a real important delineation of this idea of hope. In the time of the 60s and 70s, the word in looking at the distressing times around civil rights, around voting rights, sounded like 2020 to me, but his people around him struggled to find ways to continue to be encouraged, right? And so he talks about that, and he says there's hope, and then there's optimism,
Huh?
right? Um, so he said, let me tell you the difference. And he says, optimism is thinking everything is going to be all right,
Mhm.
right? Everything is just going to be all right. It's this a blind optimism, and so people oftentimes when they say they have hope, they really are saying I am optimistic that things going to work out all right. And he said, no, that's not hope. Hope says things may not be all right,
Okay.
but we're gonna be all right. Hope is a so optimism is a future looking space. Optimism says the future is gonna work out all right.
Mm.
Hope says it's not so much about the future. I want the future to work out all right, but
Mhm.
I now have in me a present power, right? A
Mm.
present power that allows me to be strong in my present, and it becomes about my present. So I'm traveling with hope right now. It's the strength that I have right now
Mm.
to help to either bring my future into being or to deal with my future as it comes. And that's this idea of hope. And he makes this difference between he delineates between
Mhm.
hope and optimism.
Mm.
And so that's a it's a powerful. I've been looking for it for several months now, and I just in these times, and I just could not find it. But I want to turn it back to this idea of teaching, Shelley. Something you said about you know, and we were in a conversation today, and I was thinking about that teaching mathematics in ways that just teach content, right? And with
Mhm.
teaching that just teaches content without any regards to how people learning the content or engaging in the content are being impacted and influenced by the content. That's an absence of hope to me. This idea that I can just do stuff,
Mm.
do math and do English and do reading and do virtual learning and just do lessons from school, and they have no impact on the human of my being, right?
Mm.
And it, they don't do anything to help me with operate in power to negotiate my current circumstances. And so I have a real issue with that. And what I like about the COVID, the pandemic space, the space we know, what I do like is that I've seen more people reject that. I've seen more people start to reject that. I see you looking up, Shelly. What are you thinking?
Mm-mm. No, I was just kind of listening and thinking about why people reject it.
Yeah. You know, Shelly, just stand up. Just show them your shirt real quick. Show me your shirt real quick. Though. I don't know if you got clothes on, Shelly. Just real free of man. Look, you can't tell me stand up because I have a shirt on.
It says
So I
it says
apologize for asking you to
free your
stand up, Shelly.
math,
Yeah,
free your
free of
math,
man. Yeah.
and justice will follow.
And justice will follow. And this one of our shirts, guys. We did a free your math campaign raising $228 for teachers. So that campaign was important in rethinking mathematics, like having a mathematics that was so one of the reasons I came up with that was just looking at a mathematics, looking at teaching and learning that was just so powerless to impact children. I
Mm.
just fractions 1/3 plus 1/4. Yeah, I know you're going to use this thing later on in life. Again, that's not hope. Hope isn't about later on in life. Hope has a present power.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Come on with me. Hope has a present power. You know what I mean? Hope. Fatima isn't as abstract in my view of hope, but I think
You're not going to be able to let this go.
no, I'm not gonna let it go. Fatima came on this show and said, "I don't even like your title, Lou."
I'm not
You,
anti-hope. I'm
she said, "You better
pro-hope.
change." She said, "You better change the title, Lou, because I'm not even sure the title is sitting with my soul today. I've had a hard day." That's what she said.
I think
I
though that
appreciate
what you're saying about teaching math who are with the people as part of it, as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to people as vessels. While I was doing my graduate education, funny enough, that's how Dr. Lou and I met. While I was doing that, somebody talked about the idea of children as vessels, and like you just pour the knowledge into the vessel, and then you've done
Mm-hmm.
your part. And it was obviously they were saying like that's not the truth.
Right.
Like that's a really powerful idea to me, and
Mm-hmm.
also like putting it into context with I'm teaching you this as it's a standalone thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not part of anything else. And like
Right.
I think value. There's more to the word value than like what can I do with it later. So
Mm.
like it's that like you're teaching it in a vacuum, but we're not in a
Mm.
vacuum.
Mm.
For these full people, and the kids in front of us, and in your case adults in front of you are full people. So like if you teach it in a vacuum, then you are essentially like, I'm pouring it into this vessel, I'm just pouring
Right.
it into this empty space, and like that's not what we have.
Mm.
So I honestly think it's also disrespectful of the learner to
Mm.
come at it like I have the answers. I'm up here. I brought the knowledge. I'm going to pour it down on you. And
Right.
I'm just like, and that definitely is an absence of hope.
Mm-hmm.
If you're just supposed to show up and I'm the
Come on now.
authority,
I
and
see
then
you working. You're working your way. You're back. You're back, Fatima. You're back. That's right. That's right. You know, I looked at a screenshot the other day. It was the funniest thing ever. It was I don't put anybody on blast, but it was a video clip being circulated in my chat. The internet is undefeated, but it was a video being circulated in my chat where there's a student in a class. There's about 6 students on the screen, and then the parent comes in buck naked, right?
Oh,
Butt naked and comes in and like
excellent.
just over the screen, and the teacher starts saying, "What are you doing?" You know, the teacher starts making up, and it was so funny. But what struck me with the video is that the children were in such a bad place. Like they were sleeping, they were like leaning, they were just so disengaged. And I said, we have Zoom and virtual learning has become this kind of prison space of this. There's some institutionalization happening with our virtual learning, and because we've gone to virtual, but we've stuck with our traditional canons of knowledge, and
Mm.
those canons of knowledge are not hopeful. And so I've been looking for this idea of listen, how do we teach in ways that really engage young people, that engage adults, that engage the person doing the teaching, and
Yes.
inspires the person doing the teaching. And so I one of the things I invented. You guys have seen this thing before, but the audience hasn't. And you can go to my website loumatthews.live /hope wheel. You are listening to Pie Before Dinner, Talking Math with Dr. Lou. But you know, one of the things that I invented was this thing called the Hope Wheel, and the Hope Wheel. I'm just gonna put it on screen real quick,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of talk to it. Now on the Hope Wheel, you'll see. Let me get this thing out the way.
That's not it.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. You
Oh,
can see
okay.
it. Can you guys see it on the screen?
Yes.
this
Okay.
is a simplified version, though. It doesn't have all of the adjectives that you had before.
All right, Fatima. See, Fatima's coming. See how Fatima be coming for me, Shelly? I'm gonna get to that, Fatima. I like that. Fatima's done
I
our
love the
homework.
hope wheel, though. After
Yeah.
all of that, I love the hope wheel,
So
so I'm ready for it.
okay, I'll put that on. So I sat back and I thought about. I was just making donuts. When I say making donuts in mathematics ed, I was preparing to teach a group of teachers at Georgia. I'm sorry, prepared to teach and support some instructors who were teaching a group of teachers at Johns Hopkins University to do instructional objectives. And when I looked across instructional objectives and I looked at Bloom's taxonomy, and I didn't see these words. I didn't see love and invest and inspire and create and restore and protest. And I thought about all of these words, mainly love. I thought about all these words that I didn't see, that we don't teach teachers to use as instructional objectives, and
Mm.
therefore they don't show up in our lives. They don't show up in the life of the classroom because we don't even teach. In fact, I'll throw this out to the audience. What would a math lesson look like centered around love? Like I know. It sounds like a really crazy sentence to be put together. And I promise you, 99% of the people listening to this broadcast have never been in a classroom that has done that or been challenged to think about a mathematics lesson centered around love. Now I know you've done memorization, you've done creating graphs and all sorts of stuff, but what does that really mean and how do you really unpack that? So I said, I posed a question to the internet of internets. I said, what if we started our lesson objectives with students will and one of these words, right? One of these particular words around hope. And this was it evolved into the hope wheel, and this is the hope wheel that you see here on screen. That's what you're talking about, right, Fatima?
Now we're
All right.
talking.
Fatima says, now we're talking. Okay. Got you. I didn't mean to disappoint. And so looking at that hope wheel, looking at those things, what word sticks out for you? Let's just play a little game with you and the audience, guys. What word sticks out with you, and what would it look like in a classroom or a lesson for you
Mm.
as a verb? as a verb.
Dr. Shelley, you want to go first? I went first before.
Oh, okay. Okay, sure. All right. So I thought of love as a verb because I specifically thought of a student. His name is Aiden. And I asked him about math at his house or in his community. And he took a picture of his grandfather's garden. And he said there was math because it had, I think, rows. I don't know if he said rows and columns, but basically it was nice rows of whatever it was, tomato plants or whatever it was. And so for me, I would say that that was love because it pertained to this kid's grandfather. And it was something, of course, his grandfather is dear to him. And then I could use that information to create a math problem that would engage him, I think. Probably multiplication using arrays, which is columns and rows.
Yeah.
Maybe area, maybe perimeter. How much fencing do I need? So, I mean, it's a problem that we use all the time in math, but this time it's going to be specific to Aiden and his grandfather.
I like that. I like that. What about you? Any word that sticks out for
I
you,
mean, I
Fatima?
think it's probably obvious, but I'm going to say protest. That was my
Okay.
favorite part of the wheel. I was like, at last, someone finally gets me.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah.
that so much of engaging with children and trying to teach a whole person, that's something that we talk about a lot at the Friend School, is teaching the whole child. And so, like, when I think about engaging a whole person, I have to also include like the ways that we can be proactive in harm reduction, or also make amends for it,
Uh-huh.
actively working towards equality. And so protest and all of the verbs that went with it really spoke to me because
Yeah.
I think it's important to, again, just put it in context. Like, yes, you use math. Yes, you use it at the grocery store. But also, how does knowing the language of math add
Right.
quality to your life? Or how
Hey,
does not having that language
Mm.
leave you out of some parts
well,
of life?
so even in both your examples, I'm hearing here's the math, and I can use it to love. I can use it to protest. But I want to add another element to this.
Mm.
I would say that mathematics, come on now, is the language of protest. You're not ready for me today. You guys ain't ready for me today. Let me tell you why. Let me tell you why. When I wanted to go protest and think about Black Lives Matter, I had to go and search for statistics, and I found that black and brown people were 2 and 3 times more likely to be killed by police. And so I started to use the language of mathematics to protest, to shape. It gives us the essence of being able to talk about rates and talk about percentages and talk about positivity rates and talk about of the electoral map and to talk about what percentages of people have voted, and it's the language of protest. If you talk about, it's not just this thing. I can use mathematics and I can get better at protesting later on in life. Again, remember hope. Hope is not this future tensing thing. It's hope. The hope is found in the power that is given to me now in the present to persist. And so, it's the language of protest now, right?
Hmm. I like that. Protest.
Yeah, that's a powerful one. Sandra brings up support. Support. In fact, I would challenge you. You won't find these. You won't find these. You won't find that verb protest in Bloom's taxonomy. Why is that? And you won't find it in any mathematics textbook that
Mm.
you've grown up with. Why do you think that is?
I think protest is protest is held up as a dirty word in the United States. And so troublemakers protest,
Mm.
people who want disorder protest. So, like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we're not going to hold that up because we're trying to have people remain in our comfort zone. That's the key. That's how white supremacy works. Is like, you guys need to make sure that I'm never uncomfortable. And so, like,
Yeah.
you're not going to have protest be out there as something to strive towards, when
But here's
really that's an ideal of America. That's an American
but listen.
ideal protest.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna sit with that. Listen to what you're saying though, Fatima. No, I mean, as I listen to what you're saying, you're suggesting if I draw, if A equal B and B equal C, then A is equal C. If I go there, um, are you saying that those words don't exist in the education lexicon or in our lexicon as math people, because math teaching as we know it is not designed to disrupt white supremacy, but rather
Oh,
promote it and
American
sustain it?
education is not designed to upset white supremacy. Not
exactly.
social studies, not science. like,
Nope.
like
Yeah.
our educational system is set up to further America's like crummiest ideals, not our
Mhm.
good ones that are actually worth having a conversation about.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is what I'm saying, but I'm not limiting it to math. You
Hmm.
know, the fact that students are only learning about white poets is not because they accidentally didn't know that black people wrote poems.
Hmm.
So
Or
like, white supremacy is actively a it is actively a factor in American education.
Yeah.
mm,
Yeah. No, there you go again, Fatima. Are we like to talk about math on this show. You know that, right? You know.
well,
So
math. Okay, white mathematicians. There are black mathematicians.
yes, yeah. Listen, you're right, and the fact that we have to learn about them through books like yours, Shelley, is problematic. That we just don't grow up. I mean, I went through my whole life in school not knowing about black mathematicians. Black people did mathematics like that,
Hmm.
and so this idea of schooling being this idea and this is important for us as educators, because we see white supremacy as fantasy. We see white supremacy as the the domain of white radical uh or fanatical persons who act violently in a certain way. We don't see white supremacy as our teaching actions when we don't use words like protest and love and
Hmm.
invest. When we're teaching financial, if I see one more person say we need to teach financial literacy, and having that thing, we need to learn how to pay rent, I'm gonna go right off my rocker, because there's just so many things. We need to learn how to invest and to buy some
Right.
houses and some land and to do a whole lot of things.
Right.
Um, I was sitting in my barber chair, and my barber is talking to me about he's into forex trading. It's my barber. He's talking to a math guy, but I'm into forex trading, and Lou, you should look at this up. This is graphs. You can understand this stuff, Lou. And he's trying to tell me about looking at these graphs to so that I can become wealthy. And I'm like, yo, that's what's up, man. That's what
Mhm.
I'm talking about. Why isn't somebody teaching me? And hence that the title of the show, if you're so good at math, why are you broke? you know because we're not teaching about wealth building. We're not teaching about how to overcome the wealth inequality gap, particularly black and white wealth inequality gap, because we love a mathematics that's petty. We love the mathematics that talks about
Right.
pizza and chocolate bars and beans and
But we
some
also
some
can't talk about inequality without including white supremacy. Like, you can't talk about
oh
income inequality without expressly stating the
Hmm.
part
hmm
that white
hmm
supremacy, the role that plays in it. I mean, they don't one doesn't exist without the other.
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And they said, yeah, Bettina Love. Yeah, Bettina Love about being. Yeah, I thought you meant Bettina Love. Someone in the audience was talking about they were listening to Bettina Love talking about being abolitionist tonight. And yeah, it is about abolition work, right? I want to get at something that sparks me sparks me to say something even more. But and then we'll go into some maybe just a few examples and of this work. In fact, let's do it now. So let's find some examples. Let's go. You guys gonna help me. We're gonna take maybe some math objectives, and we're going to see if we can transform them using the hope wheel. So do you guys have some examples, right? I asked you to bring some examples. Do you have any?
Sure.
Yes.
You have some with you, Fatima?
Mm-hmm.
I have ones I've already transformed, but
Oh, okay, cool.
I
I was
think
trying to
I
catch.
could
I
do
was trying to
this.
catch you off.
No, I could do this with anyone. If we can,
That's right. That's right. Okay, so we'll put some
go
up.
to the Georgia standards and pluck one out of there, and I'm ready to do it.
That's right. Let's do that. In fact, I'm going to go to Eureka right now. So that's what I have right now. I'm going to go to Eureka. I'm going to look at this one's interesting. I'm going to take this one is topic D, module 3. I'm going to take one of the objectives and see if we can use here we go. I'm going to see, and I'm going to pull one up. If you guys don't mind, that's okay?
Sure.
There's the state standard, Common Core State Standard 3.0A.3. And it says, let me just, here we go. I'm going to copy it into our thing and show the audience so that they see it. And we are going to transform that using the hope wheel. How's that? Okay, how's that one? Here we go. You can't see it. The audience,
Yeah,
you can't. Okay, here we go.
Okay, here we go.
This is 3.08.1. And it says use multiplication and division within 100 to solve word problems in situations involving equal groups, arrays, and measurement quantities by using drawings and equations with a symbol for the unknown number to represent the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Common Core Standard 3.0803. I'll just put that up there real quick. But the audience has it. All right, let's think about that one. So how would you? We're going to use this hope wheel. We're going to use our hope wheel, and we're going to work
Can I see the
actively.
one with the verbs in there? The verbs are helpful for me.
Okay, let's do that.
So that sounds like a good one for invest.
Okay. All right. So audience, you have it. There you go. You have let's give you a minute to think. Go. We are going to rewrite these. So typically how I ask audiences to write verbs, I want you to do something that's pretty revolutionary. You cannot use be able to. Do you want to know why you can't use be able to? You have to write students will.
Yes, will.
Yeah, you can't write will be able to. You have to do students will and then the verb or then verbs. The reason why you don't do be able to is will be able to is a forward facing fantasy. Yeah, you feel me? It's an idea of what was that word we use? Optimism. Hope is not a forward facing fantasy. Hope is a now reality of power to change our circumstances. So we say during this lesson, students will, not will be able to. They will. That's where hope lies. So you have to say students will. All right. So students will what? I see you thinking, Fatima. I see Shelly. Shelly's just chilling. You already got it, Shelly?
No, I'm thinking.
Okay. I wish I had some Jeopardy music. I'd play that.
For this one, innovate and imagine really jumped out to me. So I was thinking students will imagine drawings and equations with a symbol for the unknown number to solve word problems in situations involving equal groups.
So you would say students will what?
Yeah, students will imagine with a symbol for the unknown number to represent a problem. They will imagine a solution to these word problems involving equal groups. So I'm thinking of it more like a cart before the horse. So I feel like the using the drawings is like the unknown number to represent the symbol for an unknown number is the thing that they're imagining. That's where the freshness comes. And then that leads you to being able to solve problems in situations with equal groups and arrays.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Mm. Okay, I like what I like that. I like that. What I like about that is that you've chosen imagine. Let me start there. So you know more's coming if I say that. I like that you chose to use the word imagine because that in itself is powerful. I mean, when was the last time that as a student audience you heard a teacher say imagine something in mathematics, right? And
Yeah.
so just we're breaking cycles of traumatic math experiences just by using those different words. And then you're not going to find this in Bloom's taxonomy. So don't even look, right? But we can use these words. And so imagine is a very powerful space. Let's help. Let's help. Let's help. So what you ready for this, Fatima?
Bring
What
it.
what will they imagine? What will
So
they
when I
imagine?
teach about unknowns, what I tell
Yes.
kids is the unknown, it's irrelevant. It doesn't have to be an X. It could be a square. It could be the drawing
Mm,
of your cat. It
mm.
doesn't matter. And that's where the imagination part comes in, because now
Mm-hmm.
I'm asking you,
Yeah,
if
imagine that it's
your
something.
cat plus 5 equals 10, then what does your cat equal?
Yeah.
So, like, I think that's
So,
where the
so,
innovation and imagine come in.
but I would push it. I would push it more. So I would push it more. So under the modality of hope, right? I would push it, and so I'd give them something to imagine. Imagine a so for example, if you were just to talk to me on the street and imagine a world where equality existed,
Mm.
like imagine a world where anybody who wanted to buy a home could buy a home, right? Imagine. So there's so many things. You see what I just did to the conversation?
Mm.
I shifted the conversation into a space of what I'm facing in life, and what I see as reality in my communities. And so it's taking it from you imagine is to bring to bear solutions into a space for which we don't have a particular framework or an idea for the solutions to exist in the first place. And
Mm.
so I would this is one of those things in Common Core that I find petty, right? It says use multiplication division within 100 blah 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 to solve word problems in situation blah blah blah. The important part here is that in life mathematics problems are represented in words a lot, right? There are situations that have problems.
Situation.
That's the important part. Whether I'm using equal groups, arrays, and measurement quantities, that's a piece. That's how I get there. That's things, right? But I would accentuate in this particular problem the kinds of problems I need them to imagine, or solutions I need them to imagine problems to.
Yeah.
Like yo, black folk are dying. Let's imagine. Let's imagine. So I'm not saying that you give that to some 4-year-olds, right? This is grade 3. but I would give them a context to imagine in and around
Mm.
a particular. I would define very clearly and upfront that the imagination, I would take it out of the math in a sense, right? And
Mm-hmm.
put the imagination into an actual situation.
Yeah.
Help me, Shelly. What do you think?
Well, I was thinking of create, which is right above imagine and innovate. And I
No,
was
no.
thinking,
I want to stay with imagination for a second. We can go to create. We can go create next, Shelly. I'll
okay.
just sticking with imagine. What would we say here?
Well, I'm trying to think of something that they could imagine and kind of see. And I'm thinking of counting, but not counting 1, 2, 3, but counting in groups of something where they might see, the trees that I can see over here if it were daytime, and imagine how many trees do you think are there? Well, if I can group them in groups, then I could solve a word problem using that. So I would want a real life situation where there's a lot of something, and I want students to imagine a strategy that they could use. And I'm hoping that the strategy would be using groups either using columns and rows, bundling things, because I think that's what this particular content standard is trying to have students do. And so the imagining part would be possibly using the drawings. It says using drawings, but something that they can think about and see. Because I think that helps is when they can imagine something, when they can actually think about it. I mean, even talk. I mean, if you wanted to talk about something like the forest fires in California, and they always talk about acres and how many trees and things like that. And I know that's sort of that's a downer kind of thing, but it is really happening. And I don't know if we think about it when we're not there. We're not in California, so we're not thinking about that.
So let me post an example here, right? So what do
Mm-hmm.
you think about, I mean, just building. So you see what we're doing. What I like about what we're doing is that you've said something, Fatima, Shelley's chiming in, and I'm chiming in. This is we're collaborating about how to make a more hopeful. This is think about, what do you think about that one?
Candy. Mm-hmm. Yep.
So this idea, I if you go back and look at the problem, look at the problem itself, right? Uh,
I feel like we're lacking in the word problem part of the standard.
Mm.
Well, which I actually meant to put with problems. With so here's the thing, right? So students will imagine ways. The problem using arrays or rows of stuff, right? It's just
Mm-hmm.
looking at a space and looking
Mm-hmm.
how that space can be taken up with rows and columns representing which represent multiplication. That literally it represents a multiplication situation, right? With three rows of, like, you have rows of trees,
Mm.
you know.
So you might be starting with a number 328 of something, and the students have to figure out about rows and columns or groups of things. Yeah. So yeah, you do have to put that into a word problem, but I'm always trying to think of the context first. What could kids think about and imagine?
Yeah,
What could
yeah.
they
And
see?
yeah, that's a different space, right? That's a different space of thinking about
Mm-hmm.
um, the context first, right? Thinking about situating the learner into. It makes me think of this particular objective. It's a third grade objective. What does this? And I think I find myself having to do this with Common Core. What's the point? What do you really want me to think about? Really,
Yep.
what's important here is that multiplication and division are represented in different ways. That's
Mm-hmm.
really what the point is here. And
Yeah.
sometimes you see it's something that's so simple, it's silly. So if you look at my iPhone, right, multiplication can be represented just by looking at, and look at my numbers. Um, Multiplication can be represented just by looking at columns and rows, right? So you
Right.
have one, two, three, four, five, six columns, six rows, 6 rows with 4 apps in each row. You
Mm-hmm.
know, how many apps do I have on my phone?
Mm-hmm.
That's the baseline of what this
Right. Right.
particular objective is saying, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And but it's asking it in a very trifling way. It's asking you to, I want you to do multiplication, but I don't want you to imagine. I don't want you to take multiplication so seriously that you imagine.
Mm-hmm.
And so what the Hope Wheel does is like let's turn this thing around and think about different ways we can do it. So maybe in addition to this, Fatima, we add then students will imagine ways in which our schoolyard or their schoolyard or school or home space can be beautified, right? Um, right, with thinking about how to spread out the space by using trees and there's language you can use, right? And we'll create problems, math, and in doing so, they had gained these experiences with multiplication and division. And there's some wording for that. I'm just shooting off the cuff, but there's some wording for that. Sometimes we get caught up in the wording, but I'm just saying, thinking about the idea of imagining a beautiful space And what does that space say about multiplication?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you go into a theater. I'm sorry to belabor this point, but you got me into this thing. If you go into a theater, if you go into a theater and you see rows, you ever try to find your row at night, and all you're thinking about is multiplication. You're thinking about how many seats am I going in, and you're only thinking about an array. You're only thinking about multiplication at this point in time, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just wish we would help young people make better sense of multiplication with those kinds of things. Let me see some examples. Here we go. So let's go to create because I know you brought that up, Shelly, and I just want to share
Mm-hmm.
Thueba's comment on her. What were you thinking, Shelly?
Nothing. I was reading her comment about the community garden using multiplication and division. You know, maybe they have so many seedlings or plants or something that they have to plant, and they plant them in rows and rows and columns.
Wow, that's even nice. So you know what I like about so just back up there. Let me back up because this is making me think about sometimes when we write these, the math becomes problematic. And I think Fatima, you pointed that out. You was kind of like, well, where's the math? You know what I mean? So so let me go back, right?
I'm also having a I'm also struggling with the objective. The
Yes.
objective was really big, but the examples we're writing are really narrow. And so I'm
Mm-hmm.
having a hard time because a broader objective is easier to translate to keep using down the line. A really narrow objective means that we're going to do that one thing.
Yeah.
So like I think that I'm that's one of the things that I'm struggling with is like are we trying to
Mm.
do a
In
broad
practice, what do you do?
objective or
Yeah.
like this
In practice, what do you do most?
I do broad most. I think about
Ah.
what I'm trying to cover, like what's the thing I'm trying to get across, and then I think of a
Okay.
selection of ways to present that idea. So
Mm-hmm.
like
Gotcha.
I love this community garden idea, but like that would be one of the things I did to teach
Mm-hmm.
this topic.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would love right. I hear you. So you're talking about so are you talking about an instructional objective or a student learning objective? Because then
And that's
then
what
you're
I'm
right.
wondering. That's what I'm asking because when I think of Common Core, our school doesn't use these, by the way. So like I've read them,
What do you
but
guys use?
our heart, we essentially teach whatever moves us.
Ah, that's
We
awesome. That's
have
awesome.
textbooks and that kind of thing, but like we don't have a set state standard in which people are coming at us to be like, "Did you teach the standard?" Um,
Mm-hmm.
but like I think of it, I think of a rather than a student objective, I think of a content objective in general. And that's how I view Common Core type standards is like what content is trying to get across.
I'm going to challenge something here, right? I'm
You're
going to
on a
challenge something
challenge
here.
streak.
No, 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 because you make me think. You make me think, and I like that, and I appreciate the community. I appreciate that. I'm going to challenge something. In fact, I was challenged. I presented this to a group of colleagues, and I put take the Hope Wheel challenge and write an objective and start it with Studentsville, right? And they said, one lady said to me, she said, "Why don't use students but use we?" And what we does when you say we will, we we connects you back. So you see the divide line between
Mm-hmm.
student and objective.
Yeah.
This is how I'm going to present. But when you say we will,
Mm-hmm.
you say we are a community, a collective community, and we're going to do this math together. And
Right.
so we're both consumers and producers of mathematics. That's
Mm.
why I hate this word. That's why I'm starting to hate this word mathematician. And I actually, if you followed any of my talks lately, I really don't use that word mathematician anymore. I use mathematics creative because we all are, when we focus on mathematicians, we still focus on an elite group of people.
Mm-hmm.
When in fact, of the matter, all of us have opportunity to create and to use and to do mathematics. It's not the domain of a certain person who's employed in a certain way, shape, and form.
Mm-hmm.
We're all given this ability. And I don't want to go on this rant, but if you change, so I would change the language to. I'm going to go back to the way it was one. I would change the language to we, and I want to say something, Shelly. Back to
Mm-hmm.
multiplication, I would I would make it I would make it more intellectually rigorous by saying this. I would say students will design and create a community garden given a area
Mm.
of 100 square feet.
Mm.
Now,
Okay.
and then I would even challenge them more. Right, students are tasked to build uh, a garden featuring rows of different kinds of flowers or whatever, but
Mm-hmm.
they have to build it, and they could only do it within 100 square feet,
Mm-hmm.
within a certain
Mm-hmm.
area. And you can even put the dimensions up of the area, but then that forces them to think maybe of the many ways. Or let's suppose I have 100 flower pots of my favorite flowers, and I have
Mm.
to build a community garden
Right.
with 100 flower pots,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to arrange them into rows. Kind of how many different what would this look like? How many different
Yeah.
ways could I possibly arrange it? Then they have to think of multiplication in that space very different by different numbers. Maybe it's 10 by 10. Maybe it's, in fact, I would even make it difficult. I would say 93, or 94. You could change the numbers,
Right.
give them real life numbers to kind of like fix around and make this thing a little bit more challenging. But what they're doing is they're looking at space, and they're looking at how multiplication spreads itself over space.
Mm-hmm.
But
So
I
I
like the
would
way
take
this.
I would take yours even further, because if we're taking out the students part and putting in the we, which I use we in my classroom all the time. I tell them we're on a journey
Mm-hmm.
together. um, if we're gonna take out the word students and put in we, then I would push it further and say we are designing a garden and we all need a space in it.
Mm-hmm.
And all of our spaces don't have to be the same. So you design your part. How does it fit in our 100 by 100-foot square?
Mm-hmm.
And how will we arrange it so that it's aesthetically pleasing? So now it matters if you picked
Oh
if you
shoot!
picked 20 trees and I picked 20 shrubberies. It matters.
Mm-hmm.
Now we have a 3D
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
we have a 3D project instead of a just flat two-dimensional one.
And
Right.
let's go even further. I'm going to raise you one. Let's suppose you say, and the language matters. Let's suppose you say, arrange it in a way that really reflects the beauty of your community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You get a whole. You see what I did? Like you
Mm-hmm.
really challenge mathematics to be more human. And
Mm-hmm.
we do that, right? We have to challenge math to be more human. I like that. No, that's a great idea. I like the push on that. Um, any other comments on this?
When you add the community in there, now we've got love in there, because that's definitely
Yes.
appreciate the beauty of your community.
Yes.
Whoa, oh, whoa! Come on now. I
Now we
think you're
got
right.
create and love in
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the thing. You got to think. Why isn't this stuff in there? Like, why isn't these? It feels weird, but it's just not a part of what I've learned about teaching.
Nope.
It's just not what I've thought. Teaching had become so mechanical, so
Mm-hmm.
divorced from doing these things.
So yeah, so part of the challenge, Lou, is if they have the Common Core standards or any standards, the teachers have to be given permission, or at least begin to learn that, they can take that standard and change it,
Hmm.
but still get that math in there. Because that's what part of the challenge is every teacher feels like I got to cover this math. I mean, and they feel like that because there's somebody looking behind them to say, did you cover this math? And so I
Well,
don't know if a lot of teachers,
it-
hmm,
the creativity is sucked out of it.
yeah, yep,
Yeah, I would even say even in the language. So we have to challenge the idea of what it means to that math. It's I think part of the difficulty comes when we try to still make a divide between what we love and what's mathematics. And I'm
Mm,
saying I want to suggest that there's a there's a merged line that this is math, that this is the beautiful math. The beautiful math is when we learn to love our neighborhood by envisioning how space can be spread out.
mhm.
Um, you know, so yeah, I think part of it is, so you know what I've learned when I talk to teachers across the country about this, what I find, Shelly, is that there really isn't anything holding them back. There's no police in their classroom every day. What holds them back is in here. What
Right.
holds them back is that I don't think I can do it. Why? Because I just can't do it.
Mhm.
That's what I see. I
Mhm.
mean,
Yeah, I can see that.
it's this permission, like Ray says, permission is the word. But what I see in classrooms a lot is this invisible permission.
Mhm.
Like I don't think I can go out and just do this because I'm not comfortable. One, I haven't experienced it, and there are people looking at me, and I might get in trouble. But no one's ever said to them, you can't bring hope into a classroom. No,
Mhm.
I mean, you're not going to find it written on any policy,
Mhm.
are you?
No.
I mean, you might to some school. That's pretty trifling.
No, I think what they do is what I mean is they will say you have to have your students will be able to objective on the board when I come in. You have to have this and you have to have that. So you have to get around that. You have to have that um, creative insubordination of
Yeah,
some sort where you know
yeah,
you're still teaching the math that needs to be taught, but just in a different way.
yeah. And this is what I want teachers to begin to question and challenge. And one way you can challenge it is one way I'm beginning to think about challenges at where I am is having when we have our students do lesson plans, have them to write a hope standard, write a hope objective, simple, write a hope objective.
Hmm.
I mean, write an objective for the what you think's the math, right? But also write a hope objective
Mm,
so that we can do more things.
mm,
Um, and so that challenges people to think about hope a little differently. Um,
okay.
yeah. So that's that's one way. Any other ones? Do you have an example you want to put up, Shelly, or do I have to go look for get another one? I can grab another one real quick.
No, I mean, I don't have I did not try to make learning objectives. I thought more about cultural and community connections,
Yes, yes, yes,
and um,
yes.
and then I would go from there.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, community connections. When I look at the protests, I
Mm,
had a connection of how a student, and this was is a real student who said, "Okay, my protest is fourth grader. I think I want my lunchroom to stop using styrofoam lunch trays."
mm,
And so the student, looked up um, information about styrofoam lunch trays, and then you can talk about how much how much styrofoam material will you save, which means you need to know how big they are. They're 10 by 14 or 12 by 14. They have different dimensions. So you can bring in some geometry, and you can bring in information about landfills. But you can do a lot of math with that. I mean, I didn't think of a objective, but just going around that hope wheel thinking of a different context that I could use. I tend to start with that.
yeah. No, I certainly agree. So one of the things that so I just want to just name something that I think what you're doing, Shelly, that I want to bring to light here, and I want to thank Sandra for putting that up as well.
That's true.
What a hope standard is not changing. What hope outcomes do, they don't change the standard, but they force the teacher to make the standard relevant. And in doing so, we have to acknowledge that all standards are already relevant, but just for the question is for who. So when you make a decision to teach fractions and you're just covering pizza, pie, and chocolates, and you've made a decision that you
Mm-hmm.
want students to think about fractions, but not too deeply. When you make a decision to teach money in a classroom and you only think about how much change can you make when you're purchasing something, you've made a decision to teach consumerism, and you've made a decision to that I want you to think about money, but I don't want you to think about money in any deep way, right?
Right.
Any lasting deep way, like saving and investing and
Mm.
interest in those kinds of things. And so let this be very clear. That's so important. But what I think, Shelley, what you said, there are two kinds of things, ways that emerge. One is you can use these objectives to connect to mathematics, use the mathematics to connect to things that are worthwhile of study, or
Mm.
you can mathematize things that are worthwhile of study. And I'll explain to you what I want for
Yeah.
one that I think is kind of hard. I'll do a harder one for you. And so here's one. This is from the Common Core. Guys, this is a grade 5 Common Core standard content 5.nfb.7, whatever
Mm.
that is. These they make this thing so daunting. But okay, so you have that right. So let's do that one real quick. I'll put that up. And we're just having fun tonight, guys. If you're listening in to Pie Before Dinner with Dr. Lou, I'm here with Dr. Shelley Jones and Mrs.
Mm.
Fatima Hines. We're talking about the ways in which hope becomes real and relevant in
Mm.
our planning of mathematics, our planning of teaching and learning. So here's one, and I did this the other day, so that's why I want to kind of put this one out there. I did this problem the other day. Um,
Well,
in fact, sorry, go ahead.
nothing. Would it you want us to give you a,
Yeah,
a,
yeah, yeah,
a
yeah,
word problem for that, or
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Using the hope wheel, right?
yeah.
uh, I was gonna think of I like
Okay, all right.
disrupt, reallocate. That's a good one.
So what?
Reallocate.
Hmm.
I was thinking reallocate possibly, or disrupt. I mean, when I think of some this type of content, I'm thinking of the fact that students don't know, like, if I have 4 of something and each person gets a half of it or
Hmm.
3/4 of it, what that really looks like. What is it that I see when I say 4 divided by, oh, I'm sorry, unit fractions, 4 divided by a fourth, let's say, or maybe I'll say 5 divided by a fourth. What does that really mean? Like a fourth of what? So I'm trying to think of, um, I don't know, reallocating under the invest part. I haven't thought of a problem yet, but just why do we need to know
Yeah, this one.
whole
So this
number
one,
divided by?
right? So a unit fraction looks like this here, right? One third. A unit
Mhm,
fraction might be like one third, one fourth,
mhm.
one fifth, one sixth, one seventh, right?
Right.
And you're right. Most people can go through their entire elementary program and not even be challenged to think about what one third really means, right?
Mhm,
We teach 1/3 and 1/3, and we
mhm,
teach it like that. But it's this idea that you have these equal sized pieces. So one third is means you have this whole like a pizza divided amongst 3 people. And
mhm,
so what that means is that this, like, look on the screen, you can see these 3 pictures of me, you, and Fatima. If you take this picture, this screen divided into 3 spaces, you get each space is called one third, right? It's 3 equal
mhm,
sized pieces. And then to further use that to divide it by whole numbers is to say, well, you know, one third, and let's say I divided one third amongst each of these one third pieces into four. You
Mm-hmm.
know, what fraction would that represent? So people are getting a piece of a pie,
Yeah.
right? So I'm taking a pie, I'm taking a piece of a pie, and I'm further subdividing it. One of the ways I did this in Baltimore was that I said the mayor of Baltimore, city of Baltimore, there's a one third acre of land that
Mm-hmm.
isn't he needs to he or she actually that's she needs to develop and has needs to develop a one third acre of land to in order to spur economic development. Uh, How many? How much land would be spread amongst 11 vendors,
Mm-hmm.
11 merchants?
Yeah, something like that, right? Yeah.
And so that's a empowerment space that had me thinking about Baltimore land development
Mm-hmm.
and opportunity development and what would that look like. And so then it was, well, is that, and the question after that, not just how much land would be divided amongst 11 vendors, but is that enough
Mm-hmm.
to spur economic
Mm-hmm.
development in the
Sure,
city?
sure.
And so they had this problem then that became not only a simple math problem, one third divided into 11 pieces, for example, but also they had to think about, well, is this enough, and what would this look like in a
Mm-hmm.
certain set of constraints? Fatima, I hear you thinking.
So, I think that part of the challenge with fractions is this obsession with edibles. Like, I, I'm gonna challenge you to talk about fractions, and there's no pie. Ain't no pie.
Mm-hmm.
There's
Right,
no cake. There's no
right.
pizza. None
Yeah.
of it. Because I think that
Why are you coming for
we
me? Okay.
the pie. I
What is
cannot
it?
take the pie.
Okay,
So
okay,
you
I
have,
think that we
okay, no pie. Okay, no pie.
oversimplify.
Hands up, no
We
pie.
we
Hands up.
oversimplify because we lower the standards of what we expect children to understand.
mm,
And so
Mhm.
we lower the standards so low that we have all these adults out here talking about pie when a third of something is just one part of three equal parts of a whole of
mm,
anything
mm,
that doesn't have to be edible. Like, it doesn't have to be a dollar. Like, yeah, we can be real quick about it. A quarter of a dollar. It's called a quarter. That's 25 cents, 25%,
mm,
25 out of 100. Okay. But like, we can't expect to provide richness when we dumb it down in that way. Like, kids understand equality and fairness very well. So if you say, I'm going to give you one third of the amount we have, and I'm
mm,
going to give Shelly one fifth of the amount we have, is that the same amount? Why or why not? Like I
mm,
really want to push people. I think it's Einstein that said, if you can't describe something simply, then you don't understand it. And so
mm,
I think if more teachers took a moment to be like, why am I always using these words? Maybe it's because you need to deepen your understanding of this concept,
mhm.
which is
That's it. That's
not a shame. I'm not trying to make you feel bad. That is what professional development is for.
mm,
Didn't become an effective algebra student until I was getting a master's degree. It was at that moment that I was like, I get algebra. This is amazing. So,
yeah, yeah.
but I challenge us to really say, like, is our creativity being held back only by the standard? Because I respect that the standard is doing it, but like, is it also that you don't know this material well enough?
Wow. Oh, I mean, I think a lot of times that is part of it. I mean, when we do, especially dealing with fractions, if I have, let's say I am a vendor and I make clothing and I want to make skirts or whatever, I want to make masks. Well, if I have 3 yards of cloth and each mask takes a fourth of a yard, how many masks can I make? And before I do any math, I should know that I should have a picture in my head maybe because I've made masks before, or someone I know has made them, but I should have a picture in my head that I'm going to end up with a lot of masks. Like I should be able to estimate that, if I have 4 yards and it only takes a third of a yard, well, how many 1/3s can I get out of 4? So I know I'm going to have a lot of masks. I'm going to have more than 4 masks. And that's part of it, because what we end up doing is doing some procedure. 4 divided by 1/3 means, flip, wait, keep, change, flip, something like that. These rules that they do, and they flip it, and they end up with 4 times 4/1 times 3/1 equals 12/1. Oh, 12. But they've never thought about, you know, they've never seen it in their head. Like, I have this yarn, this fabric, and I want to make these masks. And so I think that's part of it. Is sometimes you're right. Sometimes the teacher doesn't know, because the teacher learned procedures, and so the teacher will just do procedures. But when we I don't want to say force, but when we bring it into these real life situations and we really think about it, I think it helps a lot. It helps the student to see the why. Why do we flip that? Why do we flip 1/3 to say 3? Because in every yard, we're going to get 3 masks, right? If it's 1/3, 1/3, and 1/3. But we have to go through that process of thinking so that kids can understand, well, why do I flip it? I don't know. It takes a lot. It takes understanding the math, and then also wanting to connect it to something more than just pizza and food, like you said.
Yeah.
And I love this 1/3 of the acre of land. I love that.
So I just did this, and so I just typed this one up right now. Right, it's like, we will embrace Baltimore's revitalization efforts by examining the allocation of vendor plots through division. Example: a mayor wants to allocate 1/3 acre of land into enough lots for vendors to set up these pop-up shops. Right, and so even now as I'm teaching, like, when we talk about these pop-up shops, how much space does each vendor get when there are 11 vendors?
What about 9 vendors or 12 vendors? Why you had to just say 11?
Right. I mean, if we can't use food like pizza and stuff, then we have to stop using neat numbers
Give
too.
me 9 or 11.
Because they came for me today. They came for me today.
I like this
Persons-
question, but I think one of the barriers to one of the barriers between people and math is language. Math has its own vocabulary. So just like if you go to France, you learn to speak French. When people come to math, they learn to speak math, but that doesn't mean that they don't understand the underlying concept. So when I'm
What
reading
you
this
don't what
question,
you don't like about this?
we will embrace Baltimore's revitalization efforts by examining allocation of vendor plots through division. That's a
Yeah,
whole
yeah,
lot
yeah. That's
of
it. Yeah,
words.
yeah.
Like, we got a
Okay.
third of an acre, y'all. 11 people are going to be on it. Like, I think that I think
Too
that we
wordy.
have to be mindful. Not only is it too wordy, but who are we talking to?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't want
Well, we're
you, who is
talking to a
maybe
group
a
of.
weak reader, to feel like you can't even attend to this question because I've made the language so advanced. It's a
Yeah.
simple
I mean,
question
you
with
could change
4
the.
lines.
Fatima, you're coming for me right now, Fatima. The language is. It's. I get it. We could change the language. Yeah, we could change the language. But I'm saying you get the.
Yeah. I mean, you have to make it grade appropriate,
How
obviously.
you back? How you back? But yeah, it'd be great. But this is a fifth grade problem. But look, hey, fifth graders can read though. Let's stop. Fifth graders can read, and they can be
Some
challenged to
fifth
read.
graders can read. Some
Yeah, but
fifth
I'm just
graders
saying.
can read.
I'm just saying. I don't assume that they can't either. I'm just saying I can help them read. I can change the problem, but I just don't want to assume that I'm just going to change it because people can't read.
What I don't want is for us, are we trying to have them get a mathematical concept or a
Mm,
verbal concept? Because those are two different skill sets.
yes, yes,
Am
yes.
I
Okay, well,
trying
rearrange it.
to work
I
with
got you.
you from a number sense or from a word sense? Those
I
are
got you.
two. We talk about this in my
Yeah.
school a lot because, like, maybe you're a super strong reader, but your math is terrible. Maybe you
See,
are a really
see.
solid math student, but the word problems are kicking your butt because your reading's terrible. Like this problem to me is only for a math creator who is an extremely high level reader as well.
Mhm.
Yeah, but it was just an example for you guys as well. So I mean, yeah, we could change the word, right? We could say
Yeah.
we will embrace our city's need to promote business.
Mhm.
Like
I
I
like
can
that.
start with that. I can
Okay,
start with that statement. I mean, or do I need to change it out?
I
We
like that.
gonna sell, you know, I can go real street, you know, real street if I need to. I mean, you know, we can do that as well. Hey, listen, guys, it's been a journey tonight. It's getting late. Time has crept up on us. Thank you for tuning in. We're probably for dinner a late show tonight. We had to help count the ballots and get the selection going. But we wanted to pass the time tonight just doing some work with the Hope Wheel. Hope Wheel, you can find it at loumatthews.live / Hope Wheel. And it's really just a lesson inspiration tool for humanizing learning. And the challenge is simply this. I mean, we talked about a few things about verbs matter. I'm sorry, the language matters. Students versus we will be able to banning that. There's some other pieces in here as well. And but it asks us to think about mathematics differently, and that we can use different words like love and protest
Mhm.
and restore and create and inspire teachers. Of what words are you using as you inspire kids every day? What words are you using to craft lessons? And are you being challenged to deal with lessons, deal in hope? And in this time, when in tough times when we don't have answers, how can we be challenged to do that? So thank you. It's a tactical session tonight. Thank you guys for coming on board.
Thank you.
Let's see some of the comments.
That was
Keep
so
writing in the
fun.
comments. Thank you, Dr. Shelley and Fatima. Fatima's last time on the show.
Hey,
But
Fatima.
Fatima, you know, I heart you, Fatima. You're one of my favorites. You know that. You've always been one of my favorites. You know that. So I appreciate you, Dr. Shelley. I appreciate you.
We hold you to it, Lou.
That's right. That's
I know,
right. She
right?
said,
Y'all,
"I
if you
will
don't
do."
see me again, you know what happened, y'all.
Yeah. So, I'm
Hey,
just gonna call this
you
show.
in the classroom every day with the kids, so I give it to
Yeah.
you.
I'm just gonna call this show a rap battle. You know,
All right.
like we just have a lesson battle. We're gonna have another battle.
That
We're
was good.
bring
That was
Fatima
good.
on again. Yeah. So no, we'll definitely have you on the show, Fatima. Maybe you just take over a show. We can let you host the next one. Maybe you know that would be great as well.
Let's do it. Let's talk
You can
about
do
math in your everyday life. How does
yeah.
math relate to your everyday existence? I
it.
love
Hmm.
talking about that.
Okay.
Let's do
All right.
it.
All right.
Hmm.
All right.
Can I ask
Thank
a
you for
Hope
taking.
Wheel question before we go?
Okay. Yeah. Go ahead.
You had that topic about like let's stop acting like we don't want to make money, like it's a bad
Yeah.
thing. Can I ask if you plan to create a workshop around the Hope Wheel? Because I would love to pay for some professional development to come and talk about the Hope Wheel with you
Well,
as
there
the
you go.
expert.
I will definitely. I like what you said. You pay to. I
I will pay
definitely
you.
will create a workshop around that. Just because you've asked, you know, you're not the only person. Another person has asked me to write about it. The thing was just happening so new and so fast. I just wanted to get it up there so people can use
Yeah,
it. I will
great thinking.
definitely do that. That sounds
It'd be
like a
beautiful
great
professional
idea.
development.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
we can do examples. And what I would do is get teachers to bring their lesson
I
plans,
love
and we just begin to talk about. But what I like about this conversation, it lets me extract what's the important things to focus on. So I take from this language, I
Mm.
take from this, you know, of the merging of the idea of math and the context, all sorts of things. But we could go into another show just talking
Hmm.
about it. I know we're gonna go. Listen, guys, you have been. Thank you very much for coming on the show. You have been
Thank you.
tuning
Thank you.
in to Pie Before Dinner. Thanks, Sandra. Pie Before Dinner, talking after Dr. Lou with Dr. Shelley Jones and Fatima Hines. We appreciate you. We love you very much. It's a crazy world out there. Be safe. There is hope. There's inspiration. You can do this through your teaching. Thanks for being a part of this experience. Take care, everyone.
Bye bye.